Okay, on our Philippine-China focus, we will report on the dialogue or the conference sponsored by the Philippine Association for Chinese Studies and the Integrated Development Studies Institute headed by Mr. George C. The theme was Philippines-China Economic Forum towards Philippine Inclusive Growth, and this was held on November 6 at the Tower Club in Makati. The significant aspect of this seminar is the report from the National Economic Development Authority, NEDA, as well as the Department of Public Works on the different Philippine-China projects. The welcome remarks was given by Dr. Ellen Palanca, the PACS, Philippine Association for Chinese Studies honorary leader, and the Ateneo de Manila University Economics Professor Emeritus, and the Dr. Tina Clemente of the PACS President, Dr. Tina Clemente, and UP Asian Center Associate Professor spoke on the situation of bilateral economic relations in China studies in the Philippines. And the other significant discussants were Ms. Hazel Baliatan of NEDA, whom we will feature with a lengthy presentation of her exposition during the seminar, and Engineer Pelita Galvez, the DPWH Section Chief, Project Preparation Division. So let's watch first Ms. Hazel Baliatan of NEDA. She will give you a very comprehensive view of the Philippines-China projects. Okay, let's roll it.
Perhaps maybe we could say that it all started when President Duterte visited China in October 2016. And in that time, there were a lot of bilateral agreements that were made, signed both by government to government as well as amongst and between business partners from China and from the Philippines. This immediately was followed by the visit from the Chinese government to the Philippines through a dispatch of high-level missions. So at this time, in November 2016, there were already discussions between the Philippines and China. What projects should we work on together? And while they arrived sometime mid-November, by the end of November 2016, the Philippine government was already able to identify projects for China, possible China financing. In January 2017, the visit that was made by the Chinese government in November 2016 was also reciprocated. So our economic managers visited China in order to finalize which projects Philippines and China will be working on together. And by March, there was conducted a Philippines-China Joint Economic Cooperation Working Group meeting. Again, we were moving very fast in identifying the projects and as well as defining how do we do these projects, which areas will we actually support, what kind of funding, what are the lessons learned from previous experiences between the two countries. In March 2017, there was a signing of the Philippines-China 6-year development program for trade and economic cooperation. The 6-year development program would actually coincide with the Philippine Development Plan. So this is a program where the Chinese, again, the Philippines and China, have defined their annual plan, their work plan, the strategies, what objectives they intend to achieve, which projects are intended to be pursued. And finally, in September 2017, a high-level meeting between the Philippine and Chinese governments happened in China. Next slide, please. While there were a number of agreements that were signed during the state visit of President Duterte in China in October 2016, the following four are the agreements which NEDA, our agency itself, entered into with the Chinese government, particularly the Ministry of Commerce and the NDRC. The first two, the Memorandum of Understanding and the Formulation of Development Program on Economic Affairs, was signed between NEDA and MOFCOM, but by the DFA on behalf of the NEDA. And the second, the Memorandum of Understanding on Developing Cooperation on Production Capacity and Investment, was also signed by DFA on behalf of NEDA with the NDRC in October 2016 during the state visit. So what are the differences between the two? Well, with regard to the first one, this actually is an agreement, an understanding where both the Philippines and China decided that we will develop that 6-year development year about. It's like a country strategy for the Philippines. And the second one, it's more of an understanding on which businesses or more related to the business or investment side agreement between the Philippines and China. Okay, so the 6-year development program, I mentioned it a while ago. The Memorandum of Understanding on Cooperation in Human Resource Development was also signed between NEDA and MOFCOM in May 2017. So this is more an understanding of that there will be an exchange of experts, there will be trainings, some Filipinos will be also brought to China so they can experience as well as learn from the China experience. So it's that kind of it's those kinds of activities that will be covered under this Memorandum of Understanding. Noting that we really moved fast from the time that the President visited China up to this time, there are already a number of projects which we have submitted to the Chinese government for consideration in possibly financing. This is only the first basket, and in fact, we're already in discussion to identify which projects will be included in the second basket. But if I may be allowed, I would like to share with you at least some information on the projects that are now currently being considered. So we have the Chico River Pump Irrigation Project of the NIA, and the New Centennial Water Source Kaliwa Dam projects. These are two projects which were the first ones identified at the time these projects have already been approved by the NEDA board, which is chaired by the President, and has been submitted to China for consideration. Why these two projects? In the past administration, there was the Agno River irrigation, let me just get the particular, the the Agno River Integrated Irrigation Project and the Angat Water Utilization and Aqueduct Improvement Projects, which in a sense are quite similar in terms of the nature of the project with these two. And those two projects, the ARIP and the Angat Water Utilization, were considered successful projects funded by China because particularly for the Angat Water Utilization, this project was completed 8 months before the targeted completion date. So, in which case the Philippine government said, yes, we've had experiences with China in these particular areas, and yes, maybe we could pursue that as our first projects with China. The third project is North-South Railway Project, South Line Long Haul by the Department of Transportation. The long haul project is actually will have stations from Manila to Los Baños to Sorsogon, and with a spur line to Batangas. So the project will cost some 175 billion and is proposed for financing with China. We also have, these are two grant projects which were recently approved also by the NEDA board. Both bridges will be crossing over the Pasig Bridge. We have the Binondo Intramuros Bridge and the Estrella Pantaleon bridges. So why China? I'm sure a lot of you would have your own views on why China, but of course, Chinese loans are highly concessional compared to commercial loans. So we would also want, while there are other official development assistance that are available, to also cover the same projects or the same areas which China may provide finance to. Well, the view that there is other options that may be considered makes China also a very interesting ODA to pursue. China could also rapidly commit large amounts. Actually, up to 90% of a total project amount, China has indicated that they can finance. Also, the processes of Chinese approval of projects are fast compared to other ODA partners that we have are working with. So they are responsive to timelines and is more resourceful in dealing with external factors affecting project formulation implementation, same. And there is an advantage to tapping Chinese technology, equipment, materials, and even human resources. So I've already mentioned the two projects which we deem are the successful projects financed through China. And okay, so perhaps one of the questions or concerns people would raise is that, well, China is tied and contractors have to be from China, suppliers have to be from China. So what the Philippine government did is that it issued guidelines in order to ensure that while we may be tapping Chinese funding or sources, particularly, for example, let's say some projects, the concern is, okay, if we have a Chinese entity will be the one to prepare the pre-feasibility or a pre-investment study on the project, wouldn't this automatically mean that the project, when in its investment phase, will have to be as well financed through Chinese financing or Chinese goods and services? So the Philippine government, particularly through the Investment Coordination Committee, which is chaired by the Department of Finance Secretary and co-chaired by our NEDA Secretary, signed a guidelines that laid down this particular safeguards to address that particular concern. So when in availing Chinese support, we say that you should, or the government entity that is proposing the particular project, as well as his Chinese partner, should adhere to the revised financing framework process, which is led by the Department of Finance. So in this particular review, what the DOF, along with NEDA, DBM, will sit down with the government agency and discuss with them, okay, why are you proposing China? So it is upon the government agency proposing the project to justify why the particular Chinese technology is the one that should be tapped and not other technology or goods and services that can be sourced from other bilateral partners. In addition to that, the guidelines also states that where pre-investment studies may be availed as long as there is no Philippine government counterpart, as long as the Philippine government at the end of when the study has been conducted shall own the study and not the Chinese entity, that the Chinese entity who conducted the pre-investment study should not be allowed to bid as well on the investment phase, and that there has to be a certification that this Chinese entity is not blacklisted with our other multilateral. I understand the multilateral partners have a list, particularly World Bank, of blacklisted entities. So far, that is what is happening with regard to the development cooperation with China. But what do we have? What prospects do we have for the future? So we're looking at developing a second basket of projects. If you notice, we can tap Chinese financing for almost all areas. We have airport development, railway, public safety, bus rapid transit, fish port, hydroelectric power. So it's almost everything. There are also planned 2018 seminars for the Philippines, so there will be discussions, exchanges on aquaculture and inland fisheries management, public rental housing policy, e-commerce, and public policies. And then as to with regard to the MOU signed also by NEDA with the NDRC, there will be activities that would include production capacity investment forum, quarterly meetings, investment promotion seminars in 2018. So in conclusion, yes, there may be concerns, or there may be both challenges and successes with China in our Philippines-China economic relationship, but then it's the same with all other bilateral partners. Even if we access locally through PPP, we would also meet the same challenges and successes. But it's really a matter of how do you manage these challenges and manage these challenges. The Philippine government, the Duterte administration, is really very keen also in working closely with China. In fact, as you can see, as when I shared what has been achieved so far, we could see that there's really fast movement. And we continue to move fast with regard to improving further or expanding even further our relationship with China. And that the Chinese counterparts, have expressed their willingness to work with the Philippine government and deal with relevant issues through fair, equal, and productive partnership. So we have this commitment from them. So thank you. That's all.
So there you heard Hazel Baliatan of the NEDA with a very comprehensive and detailed presentation of the ongoing projects between the Philippines and China, the safeguards instituted by our government, and the facility with which the Chinese counterpart processes such requests, and the huge availability of funds for the Philippines to avail of at very, very concessional rates, 2% and below, with payment terms, with grace periods of 10 years or more, and payment terms of 25 years up to 40 years. So it is up to the Philippines and us Filipinos to take advantage of this and also discipline our own ranks in the employment of these funds. Plus, of course, appreciate the grants and donations as the sign of concrete goodwill from China. There were many other speakers there. George C., of course, the IDC president and founding chairman of the Anvil Business Club, spoke on the practical strategies to unlock opportunities for inclusive development and actual businesses with Chinese enterprises. And later on in the second half, Mr. Wellington Liu of Huawei Technologies Public Affairs and Communications spoke on utilizing technology and innovation to contribute to Philippine development. Like in the drone example, telecommunication in China has brought development and commerce and trade, energized the rural economy. Our rural economy is still sleeping. It is very slow. It is very rustic. We must bring it and include it in the grand developments now happening in the world. Okay, so that's Wellington Liu, and then Dr. John Paulo Rivera, Associate Director of the EAM Center for Tourism, spoke on the multiplier effect of the tourism market and the Chinese tourists, which is the tourist category that is the biggest spender. 4 times more spending than tourists from America, for example. This is one of the information we got from the talk of Dr. Rivera. And then Mr. Eric Yu, Cloud Phone founder and president, who spoke on enabling and empowering more Filipinos via mobile communication technology. And then Mr. Austin Ong, whom we hope we can invite next week to discuss further all these developments. Mr. Austin Ong is the IDC, or Integrated Development Studies Institute Director. Since we don't have time to present all the speakers, we chose only Ms. Hazel Baliatan of NEDA, and the next one is Engineer Pelita Galvez, the Department of Public Works and Highways Section Chief, Project Preparation Division, on the unlocking of opportunities for inclusive development and actual businesses, or rather, the build, and the role of foreign partners, notably China. So let's take a view of this now. Let's roll it.
As of now, the existing bridges crossing Pasig River is only 26 bridges. So that is the bottlenecks right now. So we need to expand and to have a proposal, additional bridges crossing Pasig River, and 12 additional bridges is considered. If you can see, Marikina Vista Real, JP Rizal, among others, Santa Monica Loton. Bridge is also now in the detailed design stage. And the best one is the Estrella Pantaleon Bridge and the Binondo Intramuros Bridge. This will be funded a grant from China. So that's why Binondo Intramuros. Estrella Pantaleon is already existing, but really we need to redo reconstruction. It's already way beyond its economic life. And one is the Lambingan Bridge and the Guadalupe Bridge. These are all existing, but also it really needs improvement because the seismic capacity of these two bridges is already not enough in preparation for the big ones. So Guadalupe Bridge is in EDSA. So inaunahan ko na po kayo. There will be a tremendous traffic in this area once this will be constructed or improved. I think 2 years from now. Inter-island linkage project, since we are located in a geographically area, this is very important, and most of our projects proposed for China financing is the inter-island linkage projects, considering that there are technical expertise with regards to building inter-island linkages. So, Panggil Bay Bridge is already for construction. This is under the Korean. But now is the Panay-Guimaras Negros Bridge. The feasibility study, a pre-FS, is now ongoing under the Chinese help. And then we are also planning to link the Luzon-Samar Link Bridge, or Luzon-Samar, Cebu-Bohol, Leyte-Surigao Link, and Bohol-Leyte Link Bridge, Cebu-Negros Link Bridge, and the Mindanao-Batangas Super Bridge and Camsur, Camarines-Catanduanes Friendship Bridge. One of the big project of the department is to complete and update our flood control and drainage master plans and feasibility studies for the 18 major river basins and critical principal river basins. So it will no longer be a piecemeal structure for our flood control projects. For these 18 major river basins, there should be a holistic approach, because for every structure that we build based on the master plan, a certain number of barangays and certain number of population will be safe from flooding. So this is the importance of having a complete master plan for that. And that this 18 major river basin will be under the Department of Public Works and Highways studies. So actually, we already have master plan for the other, and only I think it's around 7 for updating. So this is the master plan for flood management in Metro Manila and surrounding areas. Now, what are the major projects proposed for China financing by the Department of Public Works and Highways? One, as I mentioned a while ago, is the Pasig River, Marikina River, and Manggahan Floodway. This is 12 bridges, but that 2 is already grant, so maybe it will start next year. And then the other 10 bridges is now already in NEDA. They are reviewing now the proposal and the feasibility study. So actually, we are very proud of this project because this will be an iconic bridge as designed like this. So the Binondo Intramuros Bridge is an 807 linear meter steel bowstring arch bridge with intersecting reclining arches connecting Intramuros at Solana Street and Riverside Drive and Binondo at San Fernando Street, with a viaduct over the creek adjacent to Muelle de Binondo. So we call it an iconic bridge.
Well, that is another very comprehensive report, and we don't have time to show the images of the iconic Intramuros Binondo Bridge and the Manila flood control projects to be financed by China. So we hope we can present this in our future episodes. Well, we have run out of time, so we hope you can, if you miss the details here and you want to review it, we'll be putting up this on YouTube, and you can always go back to the archives and review this data for those serious students of our economic development plans. So with that, thank you very much, and hope to see you again next week.